first and foremost, I want to thank you so much for coming on the platform. I really appreciate you taking out the time to stop by and talk about some of the amazing work that you got going on.
I was delighted to get your email invitation. Thank you for asking me.
Oh, yes, definitely an honor. For the viewers who may not recognize you, could you let them know who you are, where you're from, and definitely what do you do?
Awesome. My name is Michele DeStefano, and I'm a professor of law at the University of Miami. I also am a program chair and teach at Harvard Law School. And I'm the founder of Law Without Walls and my own consultancy, Move Law. As a professor, I study changes in the legal marketplace. And the way that I keep up on changes in the legal marketplace is I do tons of interviews. So I've interviewed hundreds of general counsels, heads of law firms, and their clients over the last decade or so that I can keep my finger on the pulse of what's happening.
Wow. Okay. That's really amazing. Now I want to ask you this. When did you develop this passion for law? Is this something that you wanted to do your entire life, or did you kind of get into it later?
I got into it later. After graduating from Dartmouth College, I spent almost 8 years in advertising and marketing. I worked at Leo Burnett on mostly on Kellogg's, and I then worked internally at Levi Strauss and Company as a senior marketing manager. And eventually, I decided to leave the world of cereal and jeans to enter the world of law and principles and ethics. And so I went to Harvard Law School after that.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's great. Now you had mentioned you teaching at Harvard and Miami. How does that work? Do you fly back and forth? Is one online and one in the classroom, or?
Uh, no, I fly back and forth a lot. So I teach in the executive education programs about 4 times a year. And then I have, for the last couple of years, am a visiting professor, the teaching legal profession and ethics in the January term. And it's during a time period where we don't have classes at the University of Miami. So it kind of works perfectly. So I live up in the Boston area in January, which everyone says, but isn't that the nicest time to be in Miami? And the worst time to be in the Boston area? And the answer is yes. It's very cold and gray in January in Cambridge, but I love the mix of the seasons, and I love my job, and I love teaching the 3 Ls at Harvard. It's a great opportunity.
Oh, okay. Wow, that's really amazing. Now I wanted to ask you about Law Without Walls. What exactly is that?
So Law Without Walls has been many different things over the years, but right now it's a program that puts together lawyers, practicing lawyers, and business professionals with students. And we put them on teams, and the teams work together to solve a business of law challenge. The business of law challenge could be something related to AI and how to train future lawyers. It could be related to enhancing the relationship between the legal department and the marketing department. It could be related to digitizing some aspect of the law firm or the legal department. And the way that it works is law firms and corporate legal departments sponsor the team, and they bring some professionals from within their department or firm and then their clients. So really what it is it's a time to get better at our own leadership skills, collaboration skills, innovation skills, and client centricity all in one. And then the benefit is you get the seeds of an idea. Right now, our program is we train the students for 7 weeks virtually, and then we meet at a school around the world. We participate with 35 schools from around the world. And one of them usually hosts our what we call Sprint, which is a 3-day on rejuvenating as leaders, and students focus on honing new skills and new relationships as well. The community, for sure, the community of change agents, and the dedication to focusing on the skills that we don't focus on in law school and sometimes in our day jobs as lawyers. As lawyers, we're supposed to be complex problem solvers and strategic and critical and risk averse, and that makes us really good at being lawyers. But it doesn't always make us the type of people that we want in the room when we're trying to solve a problem that's multidisciplinary and and so that's what Law Without Walls helps lawyers do, become really great business professionals that are inclusive and collaborative.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Now, I wanted to ask you this. You had mentioned like AI. Have there been any significant changes due to AI? Because you look at like, the medical world, or you look at music, even movies, they could take people that may not even be alive anymore, and they can make a song, or they can make music, or, even in the medical world, instead of having a donated, corpse, they can use something that's simulated.
Yeah, so I'm a big believer in the changes that AI can bring. Yeah, I'm assuming you're referring to ABBA and Kiss. We now have hologram stars that are performing. We've had lots of projects in Law Without Walls related to AI, and in fact, a pharmaceutical company that sponsored a team has used the solution that they came up with in Law Without Walls combined with AI to greatly reduce the time for contracting to get to drug trials, because that can really, the time it takes to do the contracts actually prevents the drug trials from happening, which means lives that could be saved aren't. And so that new process that they developed through Law Without Walls is really helping speed things up. AI is, I think, changing a lot of things in the legal marketplace. What might have taken a senior associate when it comes to contract review and redlining might have taken them 10 hours before can be done in 10 minutes with AI. I don't think it's taking over people's jobs entirely, because you still need discernment. You still need the person, right? I think what it's doing in the law marketplace, and what it will continue to do, is changing the game and the emphasis. So maybe 20 years ago, you could say, well, I'm the expert in this field, or I'm the best in this field. And what it's doing is leveling the playing field and maybe democratizing the law a bit, which is a good thing. And so what will matter more is how we behave as professionals, how we do our jobs, and that will matter more than the what we do. Also seeing AI enter the classroom. At the University of Miami, we have a fellow dedicated to AI, or Sasson, who's amazing. And he has already developed a brand new product called Class Insights. And what it does is, we've used it in my class as a test case. And he came in and we gave a short hypo to the students, which is like a scenario that they had to analyze using the law, and in 500 words or less, and they had about 5 minutes or so to answer. And then it instantly collated all the answers and put in a pie graph where the strengths and weaknesses were for the class, what percentage actually analyzed it correctly, and at the same time sent individualized feedback to each student. I thought that was pretty cool.
Wow. Okay. Okay. That's good to hear. Now I wanted to ask about the Compliance Alliance Journal. If you could speak about that a little bit.
Sure. So, a dear colleague of mine, Hendrik, then he was at the University of Leipzig, and I kind of concocted this idea, although I would say he was the real creative brainchild behind it. What we wanted to do was bringing the group of people that were writing about, thinking about, and doing compliance and regulation from around the world together to have a conversation and to share ideas, but in a way that was accessible. So in the Compliance Alliance Journal, we have writers from all over the world, and topics change every quarter. And I think the beautiful thing about it, in addition to it being so interglobal, is that the articles are readable. Sometimes when you get, professors especially are guilty of this, but when you're talking about complicated matters like compliance and regulation, sometimes it can be inaccessible to other people who aren't familiar with the topic. And so the goal really was to make it global and conversational.
Okay. Okay. Now I wanted to ask you about the Digital Legal Exchange.
So the Digital Legal Exchange is a nonprofit that I helped co-found with Bill Deckelman and Mark Cohen and Dan Reed. And we developed it right before COVID. And it is a nonprofit designed to help general counsel on their first steps in their digitization journey. It's also designed to build a community among general counsel who are starting to digitally transform. And as you know, all corporations today are digitally transforming, and it's important for the legal department to do so as well, and to do so in conjunction with the business, so that the way that they change technically actually fits their clients' needs. There's nothing worse than legal operationalizing the legal department and finding out later that your business clients don't like the way the new technology is working. Maybe they don't want a front door to legal. Maybe they want to have it a certain different way. And so the digital legal exchange is about open exchange, communication among the digital leaders of in-house legal departments around the globe, to talk about trials, tribulations, and successes. And we have salon right now. Mostly, we have salon events once every month or so, where somebody will present a topic, an example, a win or a loss, and we have the privacy rules, so we don't share outside of it. And so it's been a really, really wonderful nonprofit that I've had the joy of helping develop, create, and then stay involved in.
Wow, that's great. That's great. I definitely wanted to ask you about the your latest book. I appreciate you sharing it with me. Leader Upheaval. If you could talk about what inspired you to write that and what exactly is it about?
So I've always really loved motivating people to change the way they think about the world, the way they see the world, and the way they behave. And the real reason why I wrote that book and my first book, Legal Upheaval, was to try to convince all professional service providers that even if their business model is not broken, which, as you know, lawyers right now are doing really well, but so even if their business model is not broken, to learn about innovation, learn how innovators actually approach problem solving, and learn to hone some of the skill set innovators have. Because I think in the process of doing that, we learn how to delight our clients. The book is based on hundreds of interviews of people from all over the world, as I mentioned earlier. And I purposely interviewed more people, about 50% in the US, maybe 48% in the US, and about 52% outside the US, so that I wasn't too US centric. And a lot of it is driven by and based on my experience in Law Without Walls and my consultancy. So what I've done over the last decade is lead over 235 multidisciplinary teams with lawyers on the teams on a 4-month innovation journey, from a problem, a business of law problem, to a solution with a prototype and a business case and a business plan. And I ran a program with Microsoft for 5 years, and Brad Smith's direct reports, there were 9 of them, would help coach the teams. And last year, I led a program at DXC, same thing. And then through Law Without Walls, back when our program was 4 months long instead of 3 days, I did that as well. And I share that with you because in leading hundreds of teams, I made a lot of mistakes. And I learned a lot about leadership, and I learned a lot about my own weaknesses in leadership, and I learned a lot about how to get better at being a leader and how to create a safe climate and the right teaming processes that you need to actually implement in order to motivate teams to go from a real problem to a solution that they all believe in. And that's what that book's designed to do, to share all of those learnings and really be a handbook to you as a leader for how you can enhance your own leadership style and lead teams on any type of project. Whether it's you're on a committee, and whether you're creating a strategy for 5 years, whether you're trying to develop a new product, that's what this book is designed to do and help you do. And the last part of the book actually explains a method called the 3-4-5 method that I developed over the last decade and have tested on hundreds and hundreds of teams. And it works for any type of problem that you're trying to solve.
Okay, okay. Wow, that sounds very empowering. Now I wanted to ask you this. You talked about doing the interviews. How long did that take? And did you see a significant difference? Like you say, you did half in the US and half around the world.
So the interviews have generally run from 30 minutes to an hour, depending on the person's time and availability. And so they are very time consuming. And I also, after I do the interviews, I collate them and put them in a spreadsheet, and then try to figure out where the themes are, where things are similar or different. So it's a very time consuming process. That said, it's really, it's a very time consuming process. That said, it's rich, right? It's really rich because it's people, and it's people. And I guess you could say, of course, people tell you what you want to hear. That said, because it's anonymous, I feel like people have been honest with me. What I've seen in terms of the differences, and again, this is qualitative, right? This isn't statistically significant information. That said, having worked with so many different people from around the world over the last decade or so, I feel like when it comes to innovation in the legal marketplace, that Australia and the UK is a little, that people there are a little bit ahead or more open-minded about it than perhaps in the United States. And that's probably driven by the market. The United States hasn't had to change as much as I think the UK and Australia, and the pressures that they've had, I think, are different. And so, that said, I'm seeing a huge uptake of people being in the legal marketplace, being open to change, open-minded, and embracing especially AI and new technologies. Tons of firms, people I know, they have closed systems, they're using them with their clients, really embracing what AI can do to help us serve our clients better.
Wow. Okay. I appreciate you breaking that down. You had mentioned the 3-4-5 method. What exactly is that? I know you talk about it in the book, but if you could just give, the viewers an idea.
Okay, so the 3-4-5 method the numbers stand for 3 phases. So every project I've worked on, and every project I believe you work on, should be divided into 3 phases. So it's 3 phases over 4 months or less in 5 steps. That's the 3-4-5 method. And the 3 phases are a kickoff. So I think one of the things that teams often do wrong is they don't have a real kickoff. And the kickoff has to be designed to help people team, get to know each other, establish trust, and then additionally get on the same plane, project plane. I believe that many times teams fail and projects fail because they haven't really, not everybody is really on the same plane. What do I mean? So we could all be on a plane, like an airplane headed to Miami, but there could be vertical separation. So you could think you're all headed to Miami, but actually on the same plane, and you're close, but you're not really on the same plane. And that happens in projects all the time. If everybody doesn't agree word for word, what are we trying to accomplish? For whom are we trying to accomplish it? And why does it matter? Those 3 things all have to be in complete alignment, or you can live in artificial harmony and you don't get anything done. So the kickoff is the first phase. The second phase is the work. And since 2011, Law Without Walls was part virtual. So I've been a big believer in working virtually for a very long time. And multidisciplinary teams need to work virtually. So you work virtually, and that's the middle part, phase 2. And then the last phase is the celebration and presentation, where you actually have to come and pitch the project and explain what you did, have a prototype and a business case for whatever it is. And then the 4 is for 4 months or less, as I mentioned. I think one of the other problems with teams is, in addition to being too big, which I talk about in my book, too long. Look, there's this thing called the progress principle. I didn't make it up, somebody else did. And it's so true. People need to see progress. And there's a reason we have 4 seasons. Why is it all over the world that college is separated into 4 semesters? After 4 months, you need to stop, assess, and decide whether you're going to keep going or pivot. I know people that have been on committees for 2 years. That's way too long for anyone to be on the same project. Get some new blood in there. So that's so there's the 3 phases over 4 months or less, and then 5 steps. And there's 5 steps in my book that I outline. And the most important step is, of course, it's actually step 2. Step 1 is understanding the landscape. Step 2 is problem finding. Daniel Pink and Tina Seelig have books written about the subject. Albert Einstein said it best: if I had an hour on your problem, I'd spend 55 minutes swirling the problem around. Okay, that's not exactly how he said it, but he said something like that. And 5 minutes on the solution. And so the step 2 on problem finding is really important. Step 3 is identifying the target audience. I think that's really important. As senior leaders, I think sometimes we forget who are all the stakeholders, and we don't make sure that we really put ourselves in the shoes of the key stakeholders or target audience and really empathize with them the way innovators do. That's step 3. Step 4 is ideation. See how long it takes to get step 4. And step 5, which is kind of throughout, is the business plan, creating the business plan, testing it for viability, making sure that you're not doing a what I call field of dreams problem. And I can explain that, but you're not building something that people might not actually want.
Yeah, definitely. That's some vital information. But like you say, the field of dreams. If you could talk about that, I mean, you got my mind, processing a lot of the stuff you're saying.
Okay, so for the listeners out there that aren't as old as me, you might not remember the movie Field of Dreams. Kevin Costner starred in it. And the premise was that he lived in the middle of America in a very rural area where there weren't even roads. And he wanted to build a baseball field in this cornfield. And there was a voice in his head that said, if you build it, they will come. And it kept repeating itself. And so he was like, I have to build the baseball field. And of course, because he's Kevin Costner and it's a movie, he builds the baseball field and people do come. But the field of dreams problem is often when you're trying to build a baseball field in the middle of nowhere, meaning you're trying to build something that you don't think anyone can get to, find, or maybe even want, then they won't show up for it. And that's a really big mistake that teams on an innovation journey do a lot. They create a solution that they think is great, but there's no market for it. So that step 5 is all about making sure that this is really filling a need. And if it's not filling a real need, then it's not going to be successful.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. I wanted to ask you about maybe like 1 or 2 more points in the book. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Okay. One of the chapters you talk about the 3 rules of engagement, leadership style, and enhancing collaboration. You got rule 1, rule 2, and rule 3. If you could just kind of.
Okay, so as long as you promise not to roll your eyes, because it's a little cringy, my kids would say, and it sounds a little like church, but it has nothing to do with church. I wrote these not knowing that there were some churches that had some similar things, but the 3 rules are open mind, open heart, open door. And in each of those rules, there's actual practical tips that everyone can take from them in order to enhance their leadership style, be more collaborative, and more inclusive. So those are the 3 rules of engagement. Do you want me to actually give you a definition for each one?
Yeah, that would be great.
Okay. So open mind is, I guess it was Frank Zappa said it best. A mind is like a parachute. It doesn't work if it's not open. So open mind is very much about having a growth mindset and letting go of our preconceptions. For example, did you know that often, it's more often than not, the most senior person in the room speaks first? Like, what would happen if we didn't do that? A big part of open mind is also, when I worked at Leo Burnett, I had the great fortune of being trained by going to Second City, which I think was where Jerry Seinfeld either taught or went at some point. I could be wrong, but it's a fairly famous acting school. And so Leo Burnett wanted us to learn how to act and do improv because they thought that would help us be better with our clients. And what you learn in acting school, although I did take acting classes and I was in many plays in college and in high school, what you learn in all acting schools, so one of the running tenets is called yes and. So if you're up on stage and you're doing something and you go off script, your fellow actors are going to yes and you. They're going to say yes and keep going. And in improv, that's especially true. So, for example, if I ran up to you, Taye, and said, hey, I've got this apple. You want to go on a picnic with me and eat this apple? And you were like, no, I hate apples and it's raining. You stop the scene. And I'm a big believer that because lawyers, what part of our job is to tell our clients no. And we are really great at arguing and being critical. So the most common words we use are no and but in terms of, we use maybe a lot as well. No and but are common words. And every time we say no or but, we stop the scene and we stop great ideas from being let in. So, one key part of that first rule of engagement, open mind, is learning to replace the words no and but with yes and. Rule number two, open heart, is all about empathy. And unfortunately, there's tons of research out there, some by Larry Richards, on thousands of lawyers and from all around the world. And the research is kind of depressing because it shows that lawyers don't just test low on empathy compared to other lawyers. We just test really, really low. So rule two is all about, how can we be more empathetic? How can we listen with open hearts? How can we get to the right level of listening and out of debate mode and into that empathy listening mode? And then the third rule is open door, and it's named after the Doors, of course, which are a great band. And the Doors were named after an Aldous Huxley book that was named after a William Blake poem, where the quote was something if the doors to the universe or something were, and they said cleanse, but I say open, then the possibility is infinite. And Stephen Johnson has this great book, Where Good Ideas Come From, and he talks about the adjacent possible. And so open door is all about, don't go with your first idea. There's tons of research out there that shows your first idea is not your best idea. Yet that's what lawyers do all the time. We jump to solve and we go with our first idea. And open door is about, no, let's open our doors to people diverse from us, all types of diversity, increase creativity, race, religion, age, even ambition, right? So open our door to interacting with and collaborating with people from all different walks of life. That's how we're going to get more creative solutions. So that's what open door is all about.
Oh wow, okay. I really appreciate you breaking that down. That's definitely some insightful information. For the viewers who want to get a copy of the book, what's the best place for them to do that? Do you have a website, or should they go to Amazon or Google?
I do have a website, at movelaw.com. That said, they should go to Amazon to buy the book. That's the best place to buy the book.
Okay. So we're about 28 minutes in. I want to thank you again for stopping by. I really appreciate your time, and I really appreciate the work that you're doing. I look forward to checking out the rest of the book, and hopefully the viewers will check it out as well.
Thank you, Taye. It was such a pleasure. Appreciate it. Bye,
Thank
everybody.
you. Thank you.